Sippers, welcome to the Tea With Me podcast with me, your wee mate, Shane Todd. It's a lovely day outside. Why am I wearing a big hoodie? Because I was also wearing a football top under this, and then I thought, you know what, I better dress up because I've got guests coming in and they're called listeners, aka Sippers. I've got a wee cup of tea on, I'll be honest, it's my second of the morning. Which is too many for this time of day for me. Also, I'm shooting this on a new camera, so I don't know if this looks good. I don't know what sort of camera this is because I don't know anything technological. And my friends that are technological, and the more I think about it, I don't know if that's a word, but they are in their own houses now, which is detrimental to me really and anything I do production-wise. So I bought this camera off Curry's. I had to go to Forest Side, like some sort of middle class drug deal. I had to leave my boot open. Here's what you do at Curry's: you leave your boot open, you send them a text basically saying like, oh, it's me mate, I'm outside here and all, and then a man comes and leaves the thing. He just says your name. He goes, Shane? And I said yes, and he went, no sweat, and he threw it in the back, and then you go out, close it and drive off. And I'll be honest, I had a little bit of an erection just because of how like undercover it felt, and I enjoyed it and it was good. And also, so I don't know if this is going to look good, but we're just going to have to make do with it because that's what it is. And the camera was 170 quid, so I don't know if the production quality is going to be sky high. I don't know if it's going to be cinematic, but let's just enjoy it for what it is. Also, I had a terrible incident this week where I bought something off like buy and sell for the child. Okay, we needed like one last thing. My wife found a really good deal on this. I've always been like, I understand that I like a good deal. I'm not tight, but I don't love spending money if I don't have to, unless it's fashion, in which case take my pin code. But yeah, we had to go and get this thing, and it was 50 quid, and it was about 10 miles away from where I live. So I went and got it by myself because my wife isn't driving at the minute, because of the baby and stuff. So I was like, I'll go, and you know, you want to be like the soon to be father, like going out and doing his bit. But I got really weird about doing this because I went, I don't know these people that I'm buying this off. I like just going to a shop and it's fine, but I have to go to these people's house. Are they going to invite me in? Because I'll be honest, I'm not going in because I think they'll murder me because it's off a buy and sell. And I mean, I had a lot of prejudice going into this. So essentially I get there. I didn't know there was a time. I said lunchtime, but that very much leaves it open for between 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. depending on when and where you eat your lunch. So I eventually got there straight off the bat. Oh yeah, that's what it was. The woman said, right, the woman was dealing with me first, and then the man was kind of in the house and I could see him looking out. I was like, okay, already this is weird. We're doing it in the driveway, but that's probably better because I don't want to go into their house because I don't think I would ever leave. And by the way, that's not just them, that's anyone on the buy and sell. So yeah, what happened was she said, oh, we had a thing before where somebody like, you know, came to pick something up and they didn't leave the money and they just left and we never got the money. And then she kind of was probably not that much younger than me. Maybe she was a bit, but like, you know, they had a couple of kids. Anyway, I was looking at her going, yes, but surely you know that I'm not going to run away with your stuff and not take it because look who it is. You know, but it's safe to say that they had little to no idea who the money toad was. You know, they were looking at me like, yeah, you could well be a thief. Also, I'm wearing a tracksuit because it's lockdown and that's what mummy wears. Mummy just wears her comfies, you know, like I was wearing like a Juicy Couture tracksuit. I was just wearing a velour Juicy Couture tracksuit, and and I couldn't work out why she thought I would steal it because my wife's like, I'll transfer the money as soon as you get there. So I text her, I was like, here, can you transfer that? And then it obviously takes a minute for that to happen. The girl was waiting with the thing being like, it's not through yet. Then he comes out and goes, we've been waiting all day for you. Now, the way he said it, I wasn't a fan of. And I then said something about, I wasn't thinking. I was like, I never bought anything like buy and sell before. And without thinking, I went, and I will never do it again. And just locked eye contact with him. And he didn't understand. He was wearing 3/4 length shorts, but it's totally fine. But we got it, and it seems to be working. So it's a nice time. It very much is a nice time. We've got a podcast today with Declan Lawn. Declan is, I want to say Declan's from Belfast, but he might not be, and then he might have moved to Belfast, but that's kind of irrelevant. Declan was an investigative journalist for years with BBC, and then one day, and that's when I met him, when he worked for BBC, and he got me into, so he was making a documentary then, and he said, would you want to come in and like read for the voiceover for it? And I thought, yeah, that'd be easy money for the money to gobble up. And went in, and I read the script for the voiceover, and every line I did had the same inflection on it, and it went up like this and down like this, and then the next line went up like this and down like this, and I didn't get it, and I haven't asked to do any voiceover work since, nor have I been asked by BBC. But I appreciate the opportunity he gave me, and Declan's a really nice guy, and him and his writing partner Adam Patterson, who you know, I would meet for coffees all the time whenever they were kind of based here and working more locally. One day they just said, here, we're just going to sort of go and be writers here. We're just going to write like TV scripts, and we think. And I went, oh, okay. And then, you know, you expect that is going to take someone years to break through to do anything and note. And then all of a sudden, you know, Declan's like, oh yeah, got to do this. And it's McMafia, which is like a very big BBC drama series, and that him and Adam were writing. And then it gets announced he's doing this Salisbury, we get into that during this, Poisonings, which is the big new BBC drama at the minute. I mean, I think it's fair to say it's really taken off to the point where it's the number one BBC drama now since The Bodyguard. And I think it was 2018. This is the most popular ever. And I actually think that's a big testament to it and to the writing of it, because at the start of lockdown, everybody was watching TV, and I definitely benefited myself from my show previously with Shane Todd being on in lockdown, because people were like, fuck it, may as well. You know, I heard 20,000 people going, fuck it, stick a wee man on here. But I think we're at a point now where people like myself are watching less TV. So I think that the success of this is even more of a big deal, because I think people are bored with sitting down to watch TV. So I think it's an incredible achievement. I've seen 2 episodes so far, and as I said to Declan in it, I thought they were absolutely brilliant. I think it's great. It's a really, really well made, well cast series. So we talked about that and a million and one other things. Also, before we get into it, I put out a video last night of my 2 characters who are going, alright bro, what are you at now, mate? And you know, there was a guy under it in the comments, and we've got to address this. A guy who was like, mate, this is Poundland Lemmy, you know, and people are going, I don't know whether his mates or whatever, like, this is a rip off of Lemmy's character Dee Dee. Now, here's the thing. Number 1, I'm a fan of Lemmy. Absolutely, I'm a fan of Lemmy. And number 2, I have definitely had times myself where I've looked at videos or sketches or whatever and gone, all right, no, that's like a, you know, that's based on something I've done. I've had that before, more than one occasion, with different things that I've looked at and gone like, you know, okay, and people have commented the same kind of thing. So it happens a lot. Now, I don't know what's more lame, this adult guy leaving a comment being, and he's obviously a big Lemmy fan, I get it. I'm a big Lemmy fan, maybe not to his extent, but he's like, Poundland Lemmy, and people are like backing him up on it. Yes, upon watching it, it probably is like quite a similar vibe. You know, it's a guy who's absolutely spaced out having a conversation, but the sippers will know that about 2 months ago on the podcast, maybe not that long ago, we'll dig it out. If we won't dig it out. I'm getting like, what do you call that guy from Time Team? Timmy Mallet? Is that who it is? Who's the guy from Time Team that goes and digs things up? Anyway, get him involved, because that sketch is purely based on and came out the same week as I talked about when we were out for a walk and there was 2 groups of 2 guys So it's completely adapted from that, as some of you will know, where this guy we were like in the middle of it, and this guy goes, "All right, mate, what are you at now?" And this fella who was walking past just shouted back, "Just fucking out for a walk and all." And that is what that is fully based on, as is maybe obvious to some people, but I don't know. I started like typing out a response to it last night, and then I went, also, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Because I've definitely had sketches and character stuff where I've looked at very similar things before and gone, that's not good etiquette at all. So I wouldn't stroke a sketch. I wouldn't. I mean, you'd have to be pretty stupid to do it. It's like stand up. You know what I mean? You can definitely do something that's similar to someone else without really realizing it or whatever. And then when someone points it out, you gotta go, all right, is that like too similar? But you can't steal anybody's material, because if you're someone who has people coming to see them quite a lot, everybody would just know it. So yeah, Poundland Lemmy, I would take. You know what I mean? Like I'd be probably happy enough for that, because I'm a big fan. But yeah, I mean, if that guy got what he wanted out of it, I'm glad. You know, if he got a decent amount of likes on his comments from the Lemmy fans, so I hope he's having a good weekend and a nice time. But I will not stop doing the character of, what are you at, mate? No, just fucking. It's not gonna stop. It's not gonna stop. You know, you can't stop The Rock, and I'm very aware also that I'm not The Rock. One thing also just want to briefly chat about. I don't know if this is rambling, and I apologise if it is, but before we do the podcast, first of all, cheers to everybody who gave me nice feedback on the episode during the week with Cameron, my friend in New York, who's been very involved in a lot of the protests going on out there, and we sat down and had a chat about it. It was great to do that episode, and there's been a really good response to it, so cheers. But what I want to kind of talk about is I mean, the biggest news in comedy in so long is also, I don't know if I'm looking into this camera, because I keep looking at the viewfinder beside the camera. Anyway, if people are watching this being like, has he developed a lazy eye? I actually do, in a way, have one eye that is a wee bit it's not lazy, it's just like, it doesn't work hard, basically. But don't worry about that. So Chris D'Elia, one of the biggest American comedians, has been accused of like messaging underage girls, trying to get them like backstage at shows and that kind of thing, and that's all kind of like coming out at the minute. That's still very like new news, if you mean, and if you know what I mean. And I'll never say new news again, because it sounded like I tried to say news twice. So this has led to, you know, talking about predatory behavior and stuff. This has led to, I guess, every single comedy scene looking at itself, and people then talking about their experiences on their own comedy scene. So you know, no matter where they are in the world, and it maybe is a similar thought to what me and Cameron talked about, where it can be easy to say, oh, there's no racism in Northern Ireland, you know, because that isn't the experience that you've had. But sometimes it's difficult to go, okay, but what are other people experiencing? And I don't know, I think bigger kind of conversations will happen on this, and because stand-up isn't like back, it's difficult to like engage in the conversation, because you know, you're not chatting to comedians backstage at shows, which is where this kind of, you know, chat would happen, you know, before the gig or whatever. You maybe off the side of the stage and you say like, oh, did you see this, like, what do you think of that, and you get people's opinions. But I think, like, I guess every stand-up scene will have its good points and bad points. I think if you want to call it the Belfast scene, talking about the Northern Ireland stand-up scene, I think it's welcoming. I think it's by and large a welcoming place, and I get that is not going to be everyone's experience, but I think it's a small comedy scene, but a good comedy scene, and there has been a big thing in the last couple of years, a big debate, if you like, has been the amount of female comedians, and that's been a debate that's probably unhelpfully happened a lot on Facebook, and I've kind of chatted to people about that, and I think you get into like a good conversation, and then obviously because anybody can join in the comments, it can kind of get lost. You know, you're having a good chat, and then other people wait, and it gets lost. But I guess I just wanted to, and this is weird because it's almost like you're trying to do something in school, but school's off for the summer, so it's difficult to like have the conversation. I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is, I think if there is a problem somewhere, definitely more useful conversation should happen. And I think when you have those, if you have those, however they happen, you have to be prepared to have different opinions. I'm not saying there's people who are going to be like, there shouldn't be women in stand-up, and then there's people who are like, there should. I don't mean that. I mean, people will probably disagree on, well, if that is a problem that people have, well, what is the best way to get around? What's the best way to make it better? Basically, and I know this is, sorry if this is rambly, right? But what I'm saying is, I don't know how helpful this is, but to anybody new or experienced or whatever on the local stand-up scene, because that is the only stand-up scene I'm part of, really, is the local stand-up scene. I would want to chat to anybody who had a problem or an issue with the comedy scene here, in like a proper way. You know what I mean? Like, you can't meet people for a coffee at the minute, but I care a lot about the stand-up scene in Belfast, and I'm really proud of it. Like, anytime I travel to do stand-up, bit of a flex there, then I'm doing gigs in other places. Fair, just accept it, okay? You know, I'm very proud of being like, oh, you should see the stand-up we have. So many different acts doing really well, and pound for pound, it's a brilliant stand-up scene. But I also hate the idea that anybody would feel excluded or left out, or like their path was blocked just because of gender or sexuality or skin color or anything like that. So yeah, if I think it's about, if you can do something, you should do it. So I'm just saying, if anybody does stand up or is involved with stand up locally, and ever wanted to have a chat about problems they were having with feeling like, I can't do gigs here, or, you know, what's the issue with this? I don't know. I would love to have a chat about it. So give me a shout, and we can do that, because and it's not like everybody who has issues will be a new stand up, but I've definitely been the new guy in a comedy club somewhere outside of here, and you can feel like excluded or whatever, and being excluded isn't the only issue. I'm aware of that, but I don't know. What I'm saying is, let's have chats about it, let's have conversations, and see if there's ways for people to stop feeling disconnected from the scene. I don't know. That was one of two things. That was either well said and people go, do you know what, I totally understand what he means, or the alternative is people are going, what the fuck are you talking about? And ages ago they fast forwarded to the interview that I've done for this episode. Either way, I love stand up. I love the stand up scene, and I want people to enjoy doing stand up here. And I'm looking at what way can I help, because maybe it's not like, if anyone says they're thinking about doing stand up, I go, okay, here's who you need to speak to this person, do that, go to that gig, and ask for gigs. That's always my advice, is just go out and ask for as many gigs as possible, and just go do stand up everywhere. But yeah, I would love to have constructive conversations about helping the stand up scene here and making people feel more part of it. So there you go. My guest today is Declan Lawn. I will be back on Monday for the Patreon episode, which is patreon.com/teawithmepodcast. If you want to check that out, we have the stand-up special on there, my waterfront show from last year, and you get the bonus episode every single Monday. But if not, see you back here every Wednesday and Friday. the Tea With Me podcast. We have a sponsor coming next week, which is very, very class. So check out the Patreon. There's also going to be another live episode coming up as well. But without further ado, please welcome to the Tea With Me podcast my guest, writer extraordinaire, Declan Lawn. Declan, my first heavy hitting question for all my guests is, do you drink tea? And if so, to what level is your tea drinking?
Well, I was a bit worried about coming on this podcast actually, because it's like, if an alcoholic says to you, will you meet me for a pint? You think I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't indulge his addiction.
Yeah.
And so I was a little bit worried. I was just thinking like it would be better for Shane if I just said to him, like, let's just have water or something. But I know you can't. I know you're not at a place yet where you're able. Yeah.
I can't. I mean, I tried going on green for a while. But I just couldn't do it. I found myself just, you know what I was doing? I was sort of like, I was having other drinks, like a Coke bottle, for example, but inside was tea, like kind of brown bag in it. But it's fine. I mean, it's something that's not talked about. I feel like tea addiction, especially in Northern Ireland. We laugh it off, don't we? Like, oh, stick the kettle on and we love our tea. But But really, there is something a bit more sinister at play.
No, well, I mean, there's a few of us have been thinking about having some kind of intervention for you.
Yeah.
Or like, but it is what it is. You have to come to it in your own time. It's fine. But anyway, for now, let's just enjoy the tea.
Yeah, but the interventions always finish with a big breakthrough, and then I go, look, guys, we made progress here. Let's stick the kettle on, have a cup of tea. So let's
celebrate with a cup of tea. Yeah.
I drank them. Declan, I just finished watching the first episode of the Salisbury Poisonings. Is that the correct title of the show?
Yeah, except they pronounce it there Salisbury.
Salisbury. Oh yeah, is that what I just worked out? Is that what the song is?
But here,
climbing up on Salisbury Hill. Is that there?
I think it probably is. Yeah, Salisbury Hill. Yeah. But so a lot of people here pronounce it Salisbury, but when I first went there, and I said that, the first thing somebody said to me was, "Oh no, it's Salisbury." So anyway, I got corrected.
So I watched it. I felt like I knew a fair bit about it at the time, because obviously it was like the biggest news story, well, pretty much around the world, for when it first broke, and the program itself. So whenever basically, like, they take it back, and then take it forward. You were a journalist, BBC Northern Ireland. That's how you and me met, just in BBC kind of, and good chatting. And you were like an investigative journalist, and you were doing some radio. And then I remember you just saying to me once, you were like, I think going to just try and be a writer here. I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah.
And I thought, brilliant. And I've met so many people before that, like me, like dabble in writing, or say like, oh, I want to get more into it. I hear that, so I say it myself, oh, I want to get more into it. And then kind of the next time I was talking to you, you were writing McMafia, you were writing for BBC. Then the next time I was talking to you, writing something else. And then it's this, which is like the big BBC drama at the minute. That period of time was so short in between you going, I'm gonna see what happens here, to I'm now fully doing this. Does it feel like a very short space of time to you, or does it feel like a long journey?
It feels like a long journey to me, man. I mean, it's about 7 years since I started, and I started because of the guy that I wrote this with, Adam Patterson, who you know as well. Yeah. He's also from here, and
beautiful
also
man.
Worked in current affairs. Wonderful human being. So he and I met way back in 2009 on a panorama. It was in Swansea, and so we I didn't know, he just turned up to work on it, and I was there too. And we had this night out in Swansea, completely, really badly advised. We were working at 7 a.m. the next day. It never should have happened. And we ended up singing karaoke, right? So that was the first night we'd ever met. And then we instantly knew we had a kind of similar outlook on the world then. But there was several more years, like 4 more years, before either of us ever thought, oh, we should try and write something fictional or more creative. And it just never really occurred to us. We're kind of busy and stuff. But then eventually, so I was saying to Adam just last week, when did we start this? When did we start writing? And he went back into his emails and he found an email from him to me containing our very first short film script. So 7 years, and I can see why it would seem like a really quick hop to most people, but oh man, it was. See behind the scenes, there was so much disappointment. Like there was just so much. Honestly, I think if it had been just one of us, if it had been just me, I probably would have given up. But because there was two of us, we were able to pick each other up and go right. But I know, like you've read a couple of our earlier scripts from the early days that kind of got a bit of attention in London and got us an agent and got us noticed. But both of those went really close to being greenlit. I mean, like the final meeting on the final day after months of development, and on the final meeting, it's like, nah, we're not going to do it. And the first time it was like someone had, run over your dog. And then the second time it's like, well, it's just like you've dropped your ice cream. And then now you realize that the whole business is just learning to live with disappointment and rejection, basically.
I remember the first.
But yeah, it feels like a long journey.
One of the first scripts you wrote, you were like, "Hey, would you want to read this?" And I think I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to." And I remember you giving me a printed out copy of it in a brown envelope to just read and let you know what I thought. And I remember carrying that wherever I met you with. I then had to go somewhere else across Belfast, and I remember just walking through city centre with like a script under my arm. And it was a hot day, and I was wearing sunglasses, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is my new look." Always a script, always a screenplay under the arm, and the sunglasses on. But yeah, okay. So I just finished watching the first episode, and the thing I think was so great about it is that it's a wee bit like Jaws, if you know what I mean, with the poison is almost like a character. And you feel like I felt myself, like whenever the detective character with the family like went home and started to like have symptoms and started to get a bit of a sweat on, I felt myself like feeling my mouth and being like, am I okay?
Yeah.
I was worried I got the thing as well. But the tension was absolutely brilliant. And it just that feeling of like the contamination and knowing that, because we know now with hindsight that way more people did get infected with it. So I'm watching it being like, oh, close everything off. You just want that, it's like a powerlessness.
Well, it's funny that you say Jaws, right? Because the first time I ever met the director, Saul Dib, so he had read the scripts. I met him in the production company office in London. And I was like, well, what do you think? I was really hoping he'd do it because he's just a brilliant director. And he just looked up and he said, this is Jaws, isn't it? And I was like, I'd never thought that before, but I was like, oh yeah, maybe it is. It is Jaws because it's got a hidden threat that you don't see through the entire thing. Like, it's impossible to see it. Just like Jaws is off screen for nearly the whole movie. And it's always there. And it's always,
you know it's going to get people.
And you also know that, like, whereas like in the Salisbury Poisonings, everybody's always in the water. It's not like you're safe on land, because for the first few days, nowhere was really safe. But it is really, really tense. But there is a bit in it that, like, I have to talk to you about. There was a big internet controversy earlier in the week about episode 1 where Nick, the policeman, comes back into his house and he makes tea, but he puts the milk in first. And when I saw that in the first cut, in the first edit, I just thought, Shane Todd's going to hate this.
Number one, it didn't ruin the show for me, right? There was 5 minutes after it where I was.
But you want to talk about it? Yeah, you want to talk about it. I get that. I understand. You're going to want to talk this out. So go ahead.
My first gripe is using the blue milk.
Okay. So there's another level to your disappointment, right? Tell me what's the blue milk issue then?
I'll be honest, I preempted that he was going to put the milk in first when he took the blue milk out. Like, you gotta. I don't drink milk anymore. I drink almond milk, right? But because I want to be taken more seriously as a creative. But
yeah, I get it. Yeah.
But surely you have green semi-skim milk, no, with tea?
Well, I don't have milk at all because I too want to be taken seriously as a creative, so I just drink it black. But it's interesting now that so he picks the milk out of the fridge. He has a sniff of it to make sure that it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you already knew that it was going wrong at that point, did you?
I said to myself, here's a guy who's not playing by the rules when it comes to tea.
Yeah.
I didn't trust him to make it in the traditional way. I knew there was going to be something off.
Yeah.
Genuinely, there was a second where I thought, he looked like the sort of guy who might have poured the boiling water in first, then the
And
milk,
then the tea
and
bag.
then the tea
Yeah.
bag. Like that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it could have been
Yeah.
worse
But
what he
you
did.
weren't. Yeah. Yeah.
But you know,
But
there's definitely
um.
part of me. There's definitely part of me being like, you know, I cared about him up until that point as a character. I was like, hope
Yeah.
nothing bad happens to him. Then the stuff with the cup happened. I was like,
Then you were like,
fair
whatever
game.
happens, happens. Yeah.
It's fair game.
Yeah. Um. Well, it did cause a kind of national outrage to the point where the real Nick Bailey had to tweet. His wife tweeted, and then Nick tweeted to say, I don't put the milk first," because it was basically going to. I think he was worried he was going to ruin the rest of his life. Where every
Yeah.
time he met anyone, it wouldn't be "you're the cop who got poisoned with nerve agent." It would be "you're the cop who puts the milk in first."
Especially
So he
cops as
had to
well.
correct that.
You know, he's just worked a long shift. You expect him to make a strong cup of tea, and if he puts the
Yeah,
milk in first, how's he going to
yeah,
judge the
yeah,
strength of the tea?
yeah.
Um,
Probably. I mean, like he probably would be a, 2 tea bags and maybe even a sugar kind of guy in real
sugar,
life. I would say.
sugar. I mean, call this controversial, but maybe there's a script idea in this. I don't know.
Mm.
Sugar in tea stops it being tea. That's just a sugary drink, just a sweet drink. Then.
You see, I would agree with that. Right back in the day, in my 20s when it was a lot crazier. I didn't care about anything. I would have, I wasn't looking after myself. I would have had a couple of sugars in my tea. Um, Now, if I had sugar in tea, I would kind of balk at. It would make me like kind of want to vomit, basically. But back then,
Not a
anything
care in
went
the
really. It
world.
was
I mean,
crazy days.
there was also a period in the late 90s where everyone's parents went on to Canderel for a while.
Oh yeah, I remember Canderel. Yeah,
Canderel was a sweetener, and my dad
yeah,
used to, if we were like going out for lunch or whatever, or he was getting a fry and he was going to be having tea
yeah,
at some point. Genuinely, my dad used to take Canderel with him.
yeah,
Now they were
yeah,
little, very small white tablets. You remember, like wee tiny white
yeah,
tablets, and my
yeah,
dad used to
totally.
like, would be in Brights in Belfast or something, and my dad would just go into his pocket and drop in this
Yeah,
this tablet. It's a very strange look.
but it is a strange thing. But the funny thing is, you're there having like a fry. You're having like a bacon and egg
Yeah.
flipping sandwich or whatever, and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna use this little sweetener because I'm looking after myself here.
Yeah, yeah. Canderel. Oh, memories. So you and Adam wrote the series together. How many parts is there going to be?
It's three. It's 3 parts. You can get it all on iPlayer now. It's funny the
Oh,
way it unfolds. There's so episode 1 and 2 are kind of Jaws. They're kind of a thriller, and then we made a conscious decision to turn a corner and do something different in episode 3, which is about the emotional and psychological consequences of what happened. So we follow basically we follow 3 families as they try and deal with what's happened. And that was a bit of a creative risk because essentially at that point in episode 3, the kind of the action has stopped, as in, everyone who's going to be sick is sick, or Dawn has already died. We still got, I don't know, 30 minutes of the show left to run, but we just thought, you know what? The whole thing, our whole purpose here is to show the consequences of what happened. And we just thought, let's just dive into it. Let's just write about what really happened. It's like none of it's made up. It's all true. Essentially, I mean, there's a little bit of dramatic license, but most
apart
of
from the
it's true.
tea.
Apart from the tea, yeah, the tea was our biggest bit of dramatic license.
Yeah.
So yeah, but people really responded to it, man. They really, it was a bit of a risk. Uh,
Yeah, sorry, you've froze a wee bit on me there. I think might be my internet. Oh God. Oh no. Oh no. The Russians have got him. Well, that's it. The Russians have Vladimir Putin's finally caught up on the show, and oh no. R.I.P. Declan, it's been a pleasure.
oh, sorry, man.
I
You
genuinely, I
you
thought
just
the
froze
Russians
me.
had got you. Genuinely, I thought the Russians had got you.
That's what I thought too. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Is that like
But
genuine question? Is that something that you and Adam were worried about, or did you get any advice on that? Because chances are this is going to be watched in Moscow. You know what I mean? Like people are going to
yeah,
see this, and I'm aware that this story focuses way more on like the human side of
yeah.
the fallout from it, and
I
it's not. There's no like you don't see these like stereotypical like Russian agent characters or anything like that. Sippers, let me really quickly interrupt the podcast with my man Declan just to say that my stand-up tour has been rescheduled. My brand new show, Somebody Told Me. Somebody Told Me. Now that'll probably get taken off Apple because the robots that listen will go, oh my god, that actually was the killer singing it. It wasn't. It was just me, and I wasn't even trying to sing, so don't worry about it. But it's gone on sale. All my dates are on my brand new website. What? theshanetodd.com. theshanetodd.com, where you can get links to all the shows. Also, that is where the merch will be going. I hope this week we've got a Sipper t-shirt, we've got a Money Toad t-shirt, a Keith Cruz Summer Soccer School t-shirt, and a couple of different mugs there as well, so you can check all that out. I'll post obviously whenever all that goes up, so do check that out. Also, final plug for the patreon.com/teawithmepodcast. Cheers, Sippers. Back to the pod with Declan Lawn.
We're back. We're back.
I mean, a couple of terrible things happened there. My Wi-Fi stopped working. I was trying to go on the personal hotspot, and then in the meantime, when I was panicking, I touched my hair, and I've got this bit.
Oh, I see that bit. Yeah.
It's not going anywhere. Like I'm trying to get it. Look, I'm trying to get it to join these guys. Oh, go play.
Oh no, it's fully vertical. It's just like.
Then I'm going.
What do you do? What are you doing haircut wise these days? Are you what? You that it's like.
Well,
I mean, it looks extremely neat and short. Unlike this. I mean, what are you breaking the rules? How's that working?
Basically, what I've done is let it grow long on top. No rule breaking. I've let it grow long on top, and my wife just cuts the back and sides just with the scissors.
Yeah.
So basically, as
Pretty
soon as it
job.
goes around the ear, just goes really tight on that, and then I just try and but then it all falls apart. It's all for nothing when this happens.
I mean, yeah, it looks good. I would say get the scissors out and just take that right off.
I don't know. I've got football training today, like so. I basically, a lot of people will not do their hair before football, but then if I know my hair doesn't look right when I'm playing, anyway, Declan, it's not what I wanted to talk to you about. What I want to talk to you about.
No. If your hair doesn't look like when you're playing, you don't play as well.
Not that I don't play as well, but I kind of think about it like I get in my head, like the local paper come down and take pictures of our games sometimes.
Take pictures, yeah.
I don't want to be in the Morn Observer looking like a fucking animal, So
no, exactly. That's very.
What
very
about you?
important.
You just sort of freewheeling it, just kind of. You've had the back and sides done though. You've had round the ears.
I haven't, man. I haven't looked at. No, it's quite long. Like I haven't had hair this long since I was about 19. That was back in the 90s when I had full curtains. And I looked in the mirror the other day, and I can do curtains.
Yes,
I can do curtains.
Do you know what? That actually looks pretty good. And also, like you're gonna write way more stuff, and like obviously this is like such a big deal. But if you go to meetings and you're like, oh, I'm not too sure if they're going to commission this one, you will always be remembered if you're the guy with curtains. People will jump to you so quick and go. Yeah,
what 100%. I'm thinking of doing, right? If that's going to be my brand, I'll get some baggy jeans, like a stripy sweater and Converse trainers, and I'll just bring like Stone Roses CDs and a CD, like a CD Walkman, maybe Happy Mondays, that kind of thing, and just basically be the guy from 1996.
What if you have like a bucket, like a Kangol bucket hat on, and then you take it off to reveal the curtains? Don't go in with the curtains. Like have the curtains up the sleeve. So
you see, this is why you get paid the big bucks. It's all about the detail.
I know. So the reaction you've had from the show is I guess really, really good. Like how does that translate itself when you? Because I would definitely find this difficult to just be the writer of something and not then be. So anytime I write something, I kind of think, oh, I want to be in this, and I'm like less doing that now. I'm trying to like separate that a bit. But is it difficult to be the writer and then and you might correct me on this, like have to almost hand a lot of it over, and you might have written something this way and seen it this way, and then it gets changed to be this other thing. Like, what was that?
So,
What was that
so
process?
so first of all, it does get changed a lot. Like I was looking on my desktop last week, and on each episode of the Salisbury Poisonings, I have between 40 and 50 drafts of the script. And so the people feeding into that would be the guys at the production company, executives at the BBC, um, and then the director and the producer. Everyone would have thoughts on every scene. But that didn't seem that weird for me because I'd come from a kind of current affairs documentary background. I was used to writing scripts and then being changed all the time by executives or lawyers or whatever. So I've never been a person who's written. Well, I've written a couple of short, terrible short stories that have to be, kind of like burned away from the hard drive. They're so bad. But basically, I've never been a person who kind of writes something and goes, "That's it. That's what I've got to say. Nobody's allowed to change it." Like, on the contrary, my job has always been like, say if you wrote a first draft of a script for Panorama, by the time it gets through all of the processes 4 weeks later, there's probably not a single word of commentary that survives. It's all different. So I was used to that, and it didn't really bother me, and I quite like working collaboratively. And that old cliche that they have about writing is rewriting. Well, that definitely came home to roost. I mean, it really is rewriting. And also, the other thing that really surprised me was I thought kind of at the end of last summer when we had production scripts done to be shot, that's what kind of, that they would just go and shoot that and then my work was done. But actually every day on set, and even if I wasn't on set, you'd be getting changes back. Can you change this scene? We're shooting this tomorrow. Can you do that? So right up until the last day of filming, you're changing stuff because the director might want to do it a different way. The actors might say, I don't really like that line. Can we change it? So what comes out the other end is completely different. Like, the script is essentially just a blueprint for everyone to work off. It's not a finished document. It just evolves all the time until eventually I guess it stops evolving on the final day of the edit when when you have to finish it and send it to the BBC.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's why sometimes I find it hard to write scripts that are going to have to go through drafts, because when you're used to writing stand-up, you can go, I write this once and then I can do it like this. But that's why, like, it's a whole big learning process for me to do this kind of thing, obviously on a smaller scale, and have someone be like, oh, okay, we'll change this to this. At first, I find that really, really tough. But can I ask you about whenever you were doing Spotlight and Panorama? So would you have done, and I probably remember, we probably talked about this at the time, like back in the day, but were you doing the kind of, like, locally in Northern Ireland, the kind of like expose type things of like a guy who, I feel like a lot of it back in the day was like a guy who was a plumber, but he was actually just scamming people. And they would always go, like, when I think of Spotlight back in the day, the best moment was when the camera crew like caught up to the fella, and they would always deny it really badly. Fellas would be like, "Listen, you've ripped off all these old people." The guy would be going, "No, don't." The guy would always go, "Let me think. I don't think I have." When you have to think about it, you did do it. So were you actually out doing that kind of thing?
Yeah, doorsteps, as we used to call them. And so you used to have to, they were always the absolute last resort, right? Because it's essentially a bit of theatre, and the BBC clamped down on it and said, like, you can't just, turn up on some poor guy's doorstep and do that, or some, poor woman. You can't do that to people. So you have to exhaust all of these other remedies. Like, you have to write to them, you have to try and ring them, you have to do X, Y, and Z. But if they don't respond, if you get no response at all, which is surprisingly common, then you were allowed under the rules to go and find them, and if it was serious enough. So my advice to anyone who is involved in a scam, if the BBC writes to you, you should write back. You should definitely write back.
Yeah, I mean, I
But
can't
you
imagine a
see,
lot of
as a
those guys
reporter,
would.
but as a reporter, yeah, it's a really weird thing doing that. Sometimes I wonder if maybe I wasn't temperamentally suited to it. Like there were times when I would be doorstepping someone and going like, "Oh, this is just like this is horrible." I
Yeah,
mean, there's other times when you're doing it and you're just like, just let me at them because this, what they're doing is repugnant. But there were other times when you could see the shock in someone's eyes that you jumped out from behind a bush, and I was just like, but
yeah.
I must say, I think I'm kind of more comfortable not having to do that anymore. I would put it like that.
Do you just in your spare time ever feel like just doorstepping people just purely for your own amusement with no
Oh
cameras?
yeah, no, I doorstep my wife 3 or 4
Yeah,
times a day just as
yeah,
she's making tea. I just run up. I usually use a spoon as a microphone, and I'm just,
yeah.
did you put the milk in first? Why did you put the milk in first? Can you explain yourself? Yeah.
Can you talk to me just a couple of last questions? One of which is the research that you get from like reading a bit about the writing of the show and some interviews that you and Adam have done. The research that you've
Yeah.
done from the show, you essentially like you probably used your journalistic background
Yeah.
and went and like extensively interviewed people, and you seem to just be. Did you like move over there to kind of do that?
Hello.
He's been got by the
Oh no,
Russians
hang
again.
on. You're
Oh,
back.
good.
You're back. You're
Yep.
back. We're back. We're back. Yeah. Good.
My internet's so temperamental at the minute. Yeah. So did you and Adam essentially like move over to Salisbury
Yeah.
and just sort of set up camp there and what was that like to just kind of be so immersed in something?
Yeah, so the first 4 months was just journalism, and just exactly like we would have done before for Panorama or whatever. Um, we went there. So we didn't actually like live there, but we went there definitely every week for 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 nights. We stayed in a hotel there, and we just drew up a big list of people we needed to talk to, and went about trying to find them and talk to them. And that lasted for a few months. I mean, it was really intense, but it was just exactly like we would have done before for journalism, exactly like that. And yeah, like that. I think that's why the series is one of the reasons I think why the series works, because a lot of the stuff in it is, verbatim. It's things that absolutely happened, or things that we tried to double source a lot of the scenes and conversations to make sure it was all true. Obviously there's a bit of dramatic license, you have to. It's like 8.5 months of action consolidated down into 3 hours of telly, so of course you're leaving loads of stuff out, but essentially the journalism was intense. But man, the most intense thing about it was when we started finding out new stuff about how they responded. We were blown away, and there's loads of moments where Adam and I would come out of the meeting and just look at each other and go, "Whoa, that
Yeah.
was amazing!" And you just can't wait to start writing it.
Did you have many people like did you guys get known in town as the two fellas from BBC that are writing the series? And if so, was there some people who like tried to get interviews with you to kind of like slip in either false information? Like for example, if you were doing this in Northern Ireland, you would definitely have had a guy going, "Oh mate, there were my paint and decorating company was heavily involved in this," and a guy would just be looking you to get shots of the side of his van with his phone number and email address on.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, you do get known. You do, like, because Salisbury's really small. It's like, I'm sure, like, it's a lot smaller than say Ballymena, for instance. So
Oh,
like,
right,
if
okay.
you're gonna, there's like 46,000 people in it or something. So if you're going to be hanging out in Salisbury over the course of a year, everybody gets to know you. And say, for instance, like, we were there so much that Adam and I would always just get our hair cut there rather than in Belfast or London, because we were never in those places enough. So yeah, you'd be going in every like 6 weeks, and the hairdresser, the same girl, would be saying to you, "So how's your little drama coming on then?" And we'd be like, "Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good actually. We're doing this." So yeah, you totally get known. But nobody really nobody bothered us. I mean, I imagine a few people thought it was too soon. Of course they did, naturally. Hopefully, a lot of people have changed their minds now after seeing the kind of series we were making. But it's the most welcoming place. I mean, that part of England, they're so nice and genteel and lovely and welcoming to you. It's a dream. I mean, I'm definitely going to go back to Salisbury like quite a lot, because a lot of the people in the series now are friends. So I'm
The
going to
the
try and get back and visit them.
the cast, I think it was really, really well cast, and I'm gonna be disrespectful and call one of the actors the guy from, because his name escapes me, but the guy who's also in Chris Morris's film Four Lions, who plays a member of the police. He's in Alan
Darren,
Partridge.
is it Darren Boyd?
Let,
Nigel Lindsay or Darren Boyd?
let me just look him up very quickly, because I don't want to be really disrespectful and be like, he's the guy from Four Lions. Nigel Lindsay.
Nigel Lindsay, yeah, he plays DCC Paul Mills,
So
the
he's
guy
in
who ran the operation.
he's in Four Lions, which is a Chris Morris film,
Yeah,
a comedy about British Muslims. He, in anything he's in, he is absolutely brilliant. Really,
yeah, he's
really good.
amazing.
Really good.
But
I think the cast was brilliant.
but it's funny that this has given me, because I haven't had anything produced before, I haven't worked with actors before, and this has given me a massive insight into how good actors are. I mean, it's such, like, I sound like I'm being a lovely now. I'm not. It's such a talent to be able to take words on a page and just inject all of that emotion and drama into it. But the most amazing talent is when you're on set and you're doing a scene 6 or 8 or 10 times, and every time, if someone has to cry, you go, okay, right, now let's do it again, and they're crying. You just think
Yeah.
that is such a talent to be able to do that. It's
Well, like
astonishing.
like you say, to look at words, and I still look at words if I'm performing something and go, all right, they should be said like this. And then I
Yeah.
did a self-tape audition, and do you know Martin McCann,
Oh
actor?
yeah, of course, yeah.
So
Great actor.
Marty like filmed me for the audition and kind of helped me with it, and he was like, "Oh, would you try this?" And then he told me how he would do it, and then I realized there's a million ways to deliver
A
that line,
million ways.
and the subtlety of it and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoy a program when you can tell something is well cast, like everybody is very well suited to the
Yeah.
roles, and I think as well, if you were a local, or if that had been my town or whatever, you you're not like you're not taking away anything from the story. Like, it's respectful to the place and the people, and
Mm.
being true to the story, obviously with a bit of license, like you say, is to be expected. But I thought it was great, and just to like see your names there and the way you're doing that, and it doesn't feel like it to you, but it feels like a year or two ago, when me and you guys were talking about that, this is
Yeah.
what you were
Used to
now
sit in
going to
Harlem and
do.
talk about writing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
so no, I was very, very proud. I think it's great. And you guys are going to work on like a IRA thing now.
Yeah, we've got a couple of things. Oh, I'm just getting another cup of tea delivered.
Oh, nice. I don't have that. I
You don't
haven't
have a
had that.
delivery. You don't have a delivery. Um, so so yeah, we've got a couple of things that have been in development for a while. One of them is a drama set in 1972, told from both sides of the conflict then. But the thing that we are doing next is directing a film with James Norton. The British actor. He was star of McMafia and
Yes. Yeah.
Happy Valley. So we're doing a film with him directing that. That's our. I mean, Adam is a director. He was a commercials
Yeah. Yeah.
director, a really good one. So we're going to be doing that probably spring of next year. So we'll be starting to work on that now. And then we have a couple of other ideas in with the BBC. But that's the business. Like, you never quite. We know we're doing the film, but with everything else, stuff might happen. It might not. You have to have a lot of plates spinning, because
Yeah.
usually
Of
like one
course.
in every 6 things will come off.
I resent
But
that
yeah,
guy
no, it's a
James
real.
Norton, because let me just say this: he's a much better looking version of me. Like, from a distance, you might actually go. If I was a mile away, you might go, "Is that him?" Like, you might think I was him,
Yeah,
and then you're going to get a little bit closer and go, "Oh no, it's absolutely not." Like, he is kind of like me, but really Photoshop touched up. You know what I mean? Like the high grade version.
yeah. So if we were going to have kind of a league table, it'd be like James Norton looking amazing, you looking pretty good, and then me after 14 weeks of lockdown looking just slightly like a disheveled bear.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was definitely in the Champions League spots in the league, and then his hair went out to this side, and I just got
Yeah.
relegated. Just got relegated.
Dude, I'm the one with curtains. I'm down. I'm in like I'm in Sunday morning league here.
You know, I have been doing curtains just like for a bit of a laugh in the house because it's lockdown. You got to make your own fun. Just try and make my wife laugh. I've been like doing curtains. What I'll do, so like we'll be
Mm,
having a conversation and then I'll nip off into a different room and just come back still talking, but have proper curtains and not address it.
yeah.
And it's now got not funny because I've done it about 7 times, but I like it and I think it's a look that could be brought back. And
Well,
I'm
look, I mean, the last 4 months have been really difficult for all of us, and we have to look for the good things. And maybe one of the good things that can come out of lockdown is curtains.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll work. Like, all we need is like, if you're gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. That's a good start. Arlene Foster is already doing it. We're gonna have like we're we're still representing the '90s. Like, we're gonna get a lot of people doing it. Speak to James
Yeah,
Norton, get him to do it. I
get
think
them on it.
it could be a good movement. But yeah, I'm gonna let you go. But I'm just gonna yeah, thank you very much for doing the podcast. It's great to see you, speak to you. And when this is all over, we have to go to Harlem and reminisce about the days where we used to go to Harlem and talk about writing.
Yeah, man. No, it's been a pleasure. I was actually quite nervous about coming on this podcast, given all the guests you've had, but it's been a pleasure.
No, no problem. Thanks very much for doing it. I look
All
forward to
right,
watching
good.
the rest of the episodes. Cheers, Declan.
God bless you, man.
Bye. There we have it, Sippers, the Tea With Me episode with Declan Lawn. Do check out the Salisbury Poisonings on BBC iPlayer. All episodes are up there now. You can check that out. I strongly recommend you do so. You will very much enjoy it, whether you know the story or not. Thanks very much to Declan for doing that. So there we have it, folks. Another episode. I was going to say in the can, but let's say in the pot, and that is definitely going to be a new catchphrase for the podcast. Another episode in the pot. I will be back on Wednesday and Friday here with episodes. You know, we do 3 episodes a week. The other one, patreon.com/teawithmepodcast, which I now say in my sleep. And we'll be back next week. I'll do a solo episode because we had 2 guest episodes this week, but I'll do a solo episode. We'll do the listeners' questions, we'll do TripAdvisor, and then I'll have a guest on as well. And that just reminds me, I need to really arrange that right now. Thank you very much for listening, for watching. As always, if you want to tell your friends about this, I'd really appreciate that, especially over a cup of tea. If you're ever having a cup of tea with a friend, just say to them, hey, Tea With Me podcast, that's what you need in their life, and then temporarily steal their phone, subscribe to this podcast, and slip it back in their bag like nothing happened. And that's all I'm asking. I don't know if the video version of this has worked or if it will be released, because there's a wee red dot there saying I am recording, but I've no idea if I am. But we're gonna learn. That's the thing. Thank you very much for listening and watching. Poundland, let me out.